let's go to question 4. When you see these faces, what do you think about? All different types of people from different places in this world. What do you think about? Something's going into your mind. What about these? What do they speak to you? You see, question 4 is all about what's your brand. Those people have a brand. Those images are a brand. And guess what? You're a brand too. If you want to know and identify what your brand is, ask these 2 questions of yourself. What are you known for? And why do people come to you? What are you known for? And why do people come to you? Now, when you answer those questions and you start to shiver, ask yourself this question: what do I want to be known for? Now, when you take the reality of what you are known for and why people come to you, and then you say to yourself, how do I really want to be known? What's the difference? Why is there a difference? Why is there a difference? At the end of the day, it's all about understanding that we need to be able to recognize what that difference is. So when people hear your name or see your face, what do they think? Well, let me tell you something. My brand 25 and more years ago was a very, very bad brand. As a matter of fact, if I was marketed, I would have had no sales. I was a liar. I was a cheat. I was a thief. I did everything under the assumption that because my parents didn't give me all these things, that I deserved them, and I wanted to go get them. I didn't like who I was because, like Juan was talking about his father, my father was a good man. He just wasn't a great teaching dad. There's a difference. He was older when he had me, and he really didn't show me the way. And I was craving attention. I never got that attention, so I just made this little world of my own. As a matter of fact, to this day, I told so many lies when I was a kid that to this day, I don't know what actually happened in my childhood. Is that a scary thing? It is, but it's the truth. I don't know. As a matter of fact, I have 4 sisters, now I have 3, and when they talk about the past, I don't remember. When they're talking about my life, I don't remember, because I blocked so much of it away because I lived in my own little world. That was who I was. My brother-in-law disliked me so much that in his will, he wrote in there that my brother-in-law Joe can have nothing to do with my business because he was figuring I was going to rip my sister off. You want to be humbled? That's humbling. Funny thing is, that happened when my life was changing, but he never saw it because he didn't want to see it. You see, you can't help what people think about you. And you can't worry what people think about you if you're doing the right thing. You just keep doing what's right. You see, one of the challenges we face is we start to label ourselves. Loser, addict, victim. And we start playing into that role. And we like to live it out. It's a new role. We're the star in that role. And we're really, really good at it. I wonder, in this room today, how many of you are playing the victim? You know what? It's their fault that I'm like this. Well, guess what? I am the product of an imperfect family, and so are you. But I am the product of a perfect God, and so are you. Which one you choose to follow? That's why God gave us free will. You have a choice. You could play the victim, or you could say, significant life, successful life. You have it in your power. I don't care where you come from. I don't care where you've been. I only know that tomorrow is another day. And guess what? Small steps today are getting you to tomorrow. We all have the ability to do something great. The problem is we don't understand our brand.
understanding our brand, what marks you, what labels you, from an identifying perspective, is your responsibility. I mentioned earlier that you're the only one that can answer the question, who are you really? Well, part of who you are is understanding your brand. So God has given us the ability to respond to this brand thing. Think about it. Why do people think the way they do about you? What do you think about you? Is it based on what other people think about you? Do you allow people to define you, what they say about you, how they look at you? The conversations and in those conversations, the words that may describe you? Sometimes we allow ourselves to be labeled and then settle in comfortably into the role of the victim. I've done that. I remember in 1990, I became a plaintiff in a court case for free agency against the almighty NFL owners. I was blackballed that year. I didn't have one carry that season. I remember after we won the championship game in San Francisco, we flew into Tampa, and I realized in a team meeting I wasn't going to carry the ball in the Super Bowl, and I just lost it. I stormed out of the meeting room, going to get my family, my wife and my kids. We were going to get on the airplane and fly back to New Jersey. I was just done. And thank God, God sent somebody to me and woke me up. And from that moment on, I began to realize not to be labeled in the way I had allowed myself to be labeled and marked that year. And that began my journey to understand my brand.
One of the ways that in today's culture we are being kind of assessed or challenged to know our brand is what's called EQ, emotional quotient or emotional intelligence. Dr. Daniel Goleman wrote this book some years ago, and it's an assessment that's done, and a lot of corporate America is actually using this tool and resource so that when they want to hire someone, they make sure they hire the right fit. You know, it's called the culture now that every company, organization is creating. And so they want to hire the person that understands their brand. They want to hire the person that understands themselves, because there's power in self-awareness. And when you look at EQ or emotional intelligence, it breaks down 4 quadrants. The first one, and probably one of the most important, is self-awareness. And when you kind of navigate what self-awareness is, it's a powerful skill to see yourself clearly. It's something that informs your decisions and weighs your options. It also allows you to test your limits. It provides you with the ability to do better and to understand others better. It allows you to maximize what we've been talking about, your strengths, and minimize your weaknesses. Because remember, our weaknesses will always be with us. Remember what the Lord told Paul, and Paul, for some reason, kept praying, and God said, dude, my grace is sufficient. And so our weaknesses will always be with us. The key is to manage our weaknesses so that our weaknesses do not manage us. And also, self-awareness unlocks the door to your true potential.
Okay, so let's get to the idea of changing your brand. So we've already established that you have a brand, understanding your brand. Now let's look at how do you change the brand that's not so good. Now, when you want to change something, generally you go to somebody else because you want to get some feedback, right? How about this? Go to somebody and ask them this question. What's it like being on the other side of me? What's it like being on the other side of me. Have you ever thought about that? You're sitting at a table, and as you're talking, and some people talk incessantly, the person over here, they're not listening a lot of time. They're just saying, this guy is such a... So it would be really interesting to ask yourself the question, what's it like being on the other side of me? I asked my wife this question. After she stopped laughing for about 5 minutes, she's like, you are just... Very encouraging, by the way. But I knew exactly what she meant. I'm a lot. I get it. But you know, when you have the guts to ask somebody that question and truly receive the answer, change can happen. Because, you know, we have this blind spot. You know, I love my car now because now I got it so that if there's a car on either side, it lights up. You know, I got my blind spot. It's really cool because sometimes, you know what? You just don't see it. But when you have warnings going off all the time, it makes it harder to miss. This is one of those things that will make it harder for you to miss by actually being proactive and saying, what's it like being on the other side of me? Growth happens when you see life through somebody else's eyes, your life. And I can promise you this, you will not change overnight. People don't change overnight. And here's the other part about the changing overnight. If you did change overnight, the world still won't recognize that you changed overnight. In my case, when I changed from that lying, cheating guy, it took my family, my sisters and brother-in-laws, about 10 to 15 years for them to recognize that it wasn't just another one of my scams. Did you receive what I just said? How long it took? Did it bother me? It sure did. But I built that. And there are consequences to what we do. And you have to recognize that. There are consequences to your actions. And so to change something doesn't happen overnight. But you still have to do it. We have to leave and learn from our past to be able to change our future. My story, I told you in the beginning who I was. But today, I can honestly tell you, I'm extraordinarily thankful for the changes that he's made in my life. Because I have accepted the challenge of changing my life, changing my brand, understanding my strengths and weaknesses, and releasing my passions. Over 150,000 men's lives have been touched. And we're believing by next year, it'll be 1 million lives. Through a man who was so imperfect, but who basically said, I've had all I can stand. I can't stand no more.
I appreciate that, Joe. Thank you. I thank God for second chances because we all struggle with the brand of our name. Your name is directly connected to who you are, or better yet, what you've done or not done. It has everything to do with integrity or the lack of it. And let me just go over the definition of integrity. Integrity is steadfast adherence to a strict moral or ethical code, the state of being unimpaired, soundness, the quality or condition of being whole or undivided, completeness. I just love that word, completeness. Because I know all of us, we all human beings, and we struggle with, wanting to be perfect. We use that word. People around us expect us to be perfect. We judge each other all the time. Are you perfect in this situation or this circumstance or whatever? But the biblical connotation or denotation of perfection is completeness. Communicating relationship. Do you know who you really are? That integrity in your heart in relation with God. Proverbs 22 verse 1 reads, a good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold. It speaks of legacy, your legacy.
So there's the headline. The latest leader fell from grace. Another pastor falls for moral failures, or the leader of said company is now arrested or under investigation. And a lot of these individuals end up in my office. And so the question that is asked usually is, how can we fix this? As Joe alluded to his personal story, it took 10 to 15 years to kind of solidify change. Because change, although it may happen overnight, it usually doesn't. At least sustainable change. And I stay away from the question, how can we fix this? Because the question truly is, where did this come from? And when it comes to brand, that's the question that we have to ask ourselves clinically. What is my structure, my deep structure of who I am as it relates to my name? What are my values, my core values that influence my name? So when people see my name, when people see my face, they don't really need to know me to know who I am. When they see me because of what I represent, because my core values, I've already experienced the conversions of my strengths and my passion, so now they see what I am, my brand. And the root of that is my core beliefs, my core values. So when we look at brand, we're looking at the person that developed in perhaps dark places. Like, you remember taking photographs with film? Remember? Taking it to the local store where you had to drop it off and come back within a week or so. And it's dark and you can't really, you put it in the light to see what it is. And when you go pick it up, now you have these pictures and you're like, oh my God. And sometimes it takes so long, you don't even remember what pictures you took, right? Oh, that's right. Yeah, Joey was there. Yeah. And everything happens in the dark. Literally, it's a dark room. Our brand, for the most part, happens perhaps in the darkest moments and times in our lives, where God is developing us. And his light, Jesus, his son, S-O-N, lights on our darkness. And that convergence becomes reality, and it becomes our brand. That is how we can clinically look at how we must protect our brand.
So as we come to the end of the section, we're again going to take 2 minutes to answer the question, what is our brand? So please take 2 minutes.